Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to call the December 6th meeting of the Board of Trustees to order. First couple of items, I'd like to recognize Representative Ryan Williams is with us in the back. Please wave, say hello. Thank you for joining us. And Ryan, as always, thank you for your efforts for this university. You've done a lot for us, and it shows. Thank you. Before we get started, we always like to start our meetings with something that is more student-centric. I think it's important to keep our focus on students. This is, as Dr. Oldham always says, it is our customer and our product. So thank you all for coming. We have two groups here today. The first one, our first guests today are members of Tech's cybersecurity team who earned the distinction of being one of the top 10 teams in the nation. At the Collegiate Penetration Testing Competition, they proved they could discover, triage, and mitigate critical security vulnerabilities. The team, coached by Joseph Cross, also won Best and Most Memorable Presentation. This competition is unique in offering a simulated environment that mimics real-world networks. I would welcome Joseph Cross, the coach, and the team captain is Joe Bivens. And the rest of the team, I don't have all your names, but I'm glad you're here. So please introduce your team, Joseph, and I ask that the members give their hometown and their major. Tell us a little bit about what you've done. Is the mic on? Joseph, is the mic on? You might have to press a button.
Now the mic is on.
Thank you. Start again.
Would you like them to approach the microphone?
Yes, please.
Well? Sam? Name and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Sam Weehunt from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a first-year master's student here.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Bivens. I'm from Tellico Plains, Tennessee, and I'm also a first-year master's student here.
Hi, my name is Darren Cunningham. I'm a second-year master's student here. Be done next week. And thank you. And I'm from Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm Max Lair. I'm from Morristown, Tennessee, and I'm a second-year undergraduate student.
Finally, my name is David Yantis. I am a second-year master's student from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Do you graduate too?
No, I got one more semester.
Okay.
All right, so as was mentioned, my name is Joseph Cross. I'm on staff here at Tennessee Tech, and I work for the Cybersecurity Education Research and Outreach Center, but we prefer to call it CROC. It takes a lot fewer words to say that. So briefly about our center and where this team came from. We do have a facility here on campus in Prescott Hall. We're always striving to find more rooms because as we renovate a room, we find we outgrow it very quickly. Our student group tries to meet every other week. We bring in guest speakers from the industry. We have members such as these that give workshops, try to give some education outside of classes to help further education extracurricularly. These meetings often have as many as over 100 members who are interested in the cyber field. We get people not always from computer science, but also from psychology, business, all kinds of walks that they're coming from. Cybersecurity is an interesting field where you can approach it from many different areas. Outside of this student group, the Cyber Eagles, we also have 3 interest groups where they can further learn these things. They meet outside of class, often at nights, on weekends, to really strive to improve their game. We have offense, which is where these fellows came from, where typically they're put in a situation where they're analyzing a company's security posture, simulating a hired risk assessment team such as the conference and the competition that they are involved in October and November. As was mentioned, in October in regionals we placed second in Rolla, Missouri, and we're invited to New York to RIT for the national competition. They did very well. There was a lot of stiff competition, as you can imagine, with 10 of the top teams in the country. We also have, from a non-hacker side, a little less threatening, a defense. These are people who you would more likely see in the industry, people you would hire to manage your systems and your servers. Part of our center is also we host the CyberCore Scholarship. This gives students an opportunity to have 2 undergraduate and a 3rd graduate year paid for, also with a stipend, and this gives them a guaranteed job outside of the school when they graduate with a government agency. Some of these already have jobs lined up with other 3-letter agencies such as Oak Ridge, where the competition we just got back from Cyberforce that the DOE sponsored. Are there any questions after that? If not, I would like to, for just a minute, give Joe an opportunity, our captain for the team, to discuss his experiences and his view from the competition.
Thank you, Joseph. So I really appreciate all the hard work that Joseph does for CROC and for our competition teams. We lovingly refer to him as our certified adult. He makes sure that we get to where we need to go. So the competition that we participated in was actually in Rochester, New York for nationals. So having him to help us through the registration process and make sure that everything logistically is worked out has definitely been valuable. So a really interesting aspect of the competition that we participated in was the level of realism. So for this competition, a fictitious company was created with employees that have LinkedIn profiles and Facebook pages and Google Plus accounts. They make posts on Twitter. And all of these internet artifacts were actually constructed in the months leading up to the event. So as we're participating, we're doing open source reconnaissance against employees of the company to try to figure out how they're connected together and what the corporate layout of this fictitious company is. And so the company was sort of modeled after Uber. It was a autonomous driving company, so it's like Uber but with fully autonomous cars. And so once we were placed into the competition environment, it was really interesting to see the level of realism in how these systems connected together. So in order to find vulnerabilities on these systems, it really required a deep understanding of how things should be configured in a corporate environment so that we can check for how things might be misconfigured as well. And so throughout the competition, we interacted with employees of this fictitious company in character. So being able to communicate effectively with people in high-level executive positions, as well as technical people who are asking questions about the things that you're seeing on the network, as well as how they can fix the problems that you're finding, was a really important aspect of the competition. There was also a really interesting subplot of insider threat, where we were essentially performing a forensic investigation into an employee of the company who, it turns out, was actually colluding with Chinese hackers in order to bring down the company from the inside. So uncovering the evidence that supports that by doing things like going through email records and searching for malware that's hidden inside of images that's being sent through email attachments was a really fun aspect. Just one final word on the other competitions that we participate in. Like Joseph mentioned, we also, all of us, volunteered as part of Oak Ridge's, the ORNL's Department of Energy Cyberforce competition as well. So this is an interesting competition. You hear on the news all the time about nation-state actors hacking into the electric grid and the vulnerabilities that are in industrial control systems, nuclear power plants, everything that controls the energy grid in the modern world. So for this competition, we volunteered as part of the Red Team, and our goal was to actually emulate these cyber adversaries. So we were given the mandate to turn the lights off and keep them off, while an active blue team is defending from our actions to try to maintain the electric grid as we are attacking them. So I'm happy to report that the vast majority of Red Team members at ORNL were actually students from Tennessee Tech. And many complete Red Teams either consisted entirely of Tennessee Tech students or were led by Tennessee Tech students. And so this is a national competition that we are volunteers for as part of the infrastructure side, providing real Red Team support for a really cool competition as well. So I would like to say thank you all for all the hard work that you do, and for making tech the great place that it is. Definitely having the cybersecurity program at Tech continue to grow is something that I look forward to as an alumni, definitely, as after I graduate. But yes, so thank you again for all that you do.
Joe, thank you so much. I'm just curious, you are a first-year master's student, correct?
That's correct.
Why did you pick Tennessee Tech?
Tennessee Tech, I came to Tennessee Tech originally before I had even discovered my passion for cybersecurity. So I come from Tellico Plains, Tennessee, a very small high school. I had never taken a computer science class before I came to Tech. And once I got to Tech, I came to Tech because of its great reputation for computer science. And once I got here through the hard work of Dr. Siraj and CROC, I was brought into the CROC family and really discovered my love for cybersecurity. And now I'm also a CyberCore scholar. To kind of put it into perspective, just 2.5 years ago, there were 3 CyberCore scholars, myself, Sam, and one other student who's not with us today. So we were the original 3 CyberCore scholars, and now there are over 25 CyberCore scholars that are on the path to giving back in government service after we graduate. So being a part of the growing cybersecurity program is an excellent experience that I've had.
That's fantastic. One other question. You worked as a Red Team, and
Yes.
Red Team cyber work is a huge growing field. Is this what you or the rest of your team hope to do professionally?
Definitely, this is what I am passionate about. I think that there are some really cool opportunities to use creative thinking. You have to know how things should be in order to break them. So it's definitely an opportunity to apply both blue team and red team knowledge in a creative way. It's a lot of fun. It's an ever-changing field, and for at least me personally, this is something that I am interested in full-time.
Anybody else?
Very cool. What other majors? You said computer science?
Yes.
I know we've got an electrical engineer or computer. I'm not sure which you are, Mr. Computer engineer. Mr. Yantis was my student. Whoop. But the rest of you, what have you studied?
I believe that all of us are computer science master's students. And then Max is a undergraduate computer science student.
Okay, great.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Just in closing, you can see how valuable these student groups are and how they can help foster this interest that I haven't seen other schools incorporate yet. So I thank Tech very much for the resources that we have, for ITS, for the help that we've had in giving them a space to practice these things. So thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. Okay, just one point. We are expecting the governor to arrive. We'll continue on, but it may disrupt things a little bit when he does arrive. So, second student acknowledgement. When Governor Bill Haslam totally committed to ending the opioid crisis in Tennessee, he created the Tennessee Together Task Force to address solutions. TNTogether.com was designed and operated by Tennessee Tech University's iCube, and it allows individuals, families, schools, businesses, and agencies to immediately do something to address these challenges and to tell their stories to encourage others to get involved. Student Amanda Kale is here to talk about the business art partnership involving 17 other students. Welcome, Amanda.
Hey everyone. I'm Amanda Kale. I am a senior graphic design student here at Tech, and I'm graduating this December, so here in about a week. Yeah. And I've been an intern here. Thank you. I've been an intern here at iCube for about 2 years. I was originally brought on to be an intern for a semester, but I guess I did something right because I'm still here 2 years later. But before I go into too much detail, I'm going to have Kevin Liska, the director of iCube, come talk more about the project we've been working on.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm going to go back about 30 years ago when Dr. Kurt Ryman was the Mayberry Chair, and he was the founding director of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, and he started the Tennessee Quality Award. So we shared offices, and we were inspired by that concept as a fantastic tool to, when you had a lot of people interested in something, to help move them to activities. So we started the Reduce TN Crashes program, and we caused 900 activities to happen in traffic safety areas around Tennessee in high schools. Later, we started Maker Minded, and we did something similar with the Advanced Manufacturing Challenge, eventually causing over 5,000 activities to happen in 7 states. About 2 years ago, same time that Amanda started working with us, we started building virtual reality games for the opioid crisis in Tennessee. And we started applying Dr. Ryman's original model to what was originally called Tennessee Victory. It basically would take positive activities that communities could do in the opioid crisis and map those activities when they were done as success stories. There's actually over 100 positive activities that have been identified. One of the challenges in the project was figuring out how to map it in a way that would motivate a lot of folks to replicate those activities. And that's where Amanda stepped in. She stepped in a key part of the project, and the rest is kind of history. It very quickly was the Department of Health got the Department of Mental Health and the Governor's Office involved, and they adopted the program, changed the name to TennesseeTogether.com, and adopted it as key infrastructure for Governor Haslam's opioid initiative. So Amanda's going to kind of tell you a little bit more about her journey through the program and the great time that she stepped in. She's also graduating in a week, so she's definitely bold, fearless, and confident. So.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So over the 2-year time I've been working here at iCube, I've completed over 100 design projects for various clients. Some of the clients are within tech, like the College of Business, and just other clients in the community. And out of these 100 projects, I think this opioid project was probably one of the most impactful that I've worked on. When Kevin Liska and Stephanie Scarborough both approached me about the project, I was a little worried because I understood the scope of this project and the importance of it in our community. And I was wondering, like, at that time I was a third-year design student. I was like, can I deliver the quality of work that they're looking for? Because there's a lot of eyeballs on this project. So instead of running with that fear, I just, I took the challenge. I approached the project, And so we ended up collaborating with the whole iCube team. We were kind of just discussing all the different options, problem solving, and then we designed the final product. And the initial designs, we worked on like a ton of maps that really showed the effect of the opioid crisis on Tennessee, and those were really successful. And those initial designs that we worked on kind of influenced the end product to where we are now. You know, it helped advance the project. You know, and we continued working on things and reworking until we finally landed on the designs that we have now today. And this final design would not have been able to create without working with this team at iCube. It's a lot of interdisciplinary professionals, so everyone brought something else to the table. And overall, you know, I'm really grateful that I was able to take part in this project because this was like a pivotal point in my student career. You know, I've always worked on class projects, but this one was much more substantial, had an actual impact on the community. So I really got to get my hands in on that. And so being able to work on this project and being able to be trusted by iCube for this, you know, this massive project, it really expanded, like, you know, my trust and confidence in myself, and can I have a successful career after I graduate? And so over the process of working on this, I realized that I did. So not only will I get to graduate in about a week with a degree in graphic design, I've also started my own business this September. So we're a few months in, and it's a branding business here in Cookeville. So I'm going to be pursuing that full-time after graduation. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions? Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
That was outstanding. It's always a good way to start a meeting. And if you don't mind, when I'm just going to give you a heads up. When the governor comes in, Joe and Amanda, I'm going to give you each about 30 seconds to summarize what you already said. I think it's worth the governor hearing it. Okay? So to continue on with the meeting, we need to go ahead and have a roll call for the attendance. We were waiting on Perna. Chris, is he? Okay.
I can do everyone but him.
Go right ahead.
Allard?
Here.
Geist?
Here.
Harper?
Here.
Rose?
Here.
Stites?
Here.
Van Hooser?
Here.
Wilmore?
Here.
Jones?
Here.
Mr. Sigardi?
Okay, yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
All right, I have to ask you some questions. Can you simultaneously hear and speak to the board members?
Yes, I can.
Is there anyone present in your location?
No.
And can you confirm that you received the board materials in advance of the meeting?
I have, thank you.
Thank you. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So first item on the agenda is we're going to go ahead with the approval of the minutes. The minutes were available in your board book. Do we have any amendments or corrections to the minutes?
Move approval.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Trudy, a second by Van Hooser.
And roll call vote.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry, I have to do a roll call vote.
All right, Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Aye.
Rose? Aye. Sigardi? Stites?
Here. Yes. Aye.
Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Governor, welcome. No, perfect. I'm so glad that you're here. Would you like to say a few words to start?
I would. Wow. First of all, I really just came for one main purpose, and that's to thank you. As the original board of Tennessee Tech, you all took a leap of faith in jumping into this when we didn't really have a role model of what was supposed to happen or what it looked like. And not only did you do that, but from the very first board meeting, my sense was this group jumped into doing their job and took, I remember the very first meeting, you had a pretty healthy discussion about tuition and fees and what was the right thing to do. And I remember walking away from there saying, that's exactly what I hoped would happen. There was good interplay between, board members, faculty rep, everybody about what all that meant. And so my main purpose of coming today was to thank you. Since that time, I know you all have dealt with and wrestled with some hard things. And that's what we hoped when we divided up and had every board or every school have its own board. The idea was a group that would focus on that institution and the challenges facing it. And so I really came over here today mainly just to say thank you, and then to see if this group had any feedback for me that would be helpful. Got about 44 more days till they kick me out of here. So I have a limited window of usefulness. But within that window, I wanted to make certain if there are things and thoughts that you all had that would be helpful for me, I wanted to have a chance to have a little bit of discussion around that.
Anyone?
Anybody?
I tell you what, I have 2 items of business that I would like to cover with you here.
Perfect.
And in the course of that, this board's usually not very quiet. I'm sure if they have something to say, I won't be able to stop them. So
That's perfect. I would love that. Thanks.
The one announcement that I wanted to make in the executive committee report was that, as Dr. Oldham mentioned earlier, there is a sunset hearing on December the 19th. And Dr. Oldham, you want to explain just briefly what that's about, and I want to make some comment about it for the governor.
Sure. Well, obviously this is a new experience for us as a board because we've never had to go through a sunset hearing previously with Legislature and Government Ops Committee. So this will be our first experience. Chairman Jones and I will plan to appear before them on December 19th. And a lot of that we've already submitted written responses to questions they provided to us. It's a normal course of function for the legislature to review how government boards are functioning. And so we've responded to those questions, and we'll appear in person to respond to any other additional questions they have. But we have a good story to tell, and I think we feel pretty good about it.
Governor, I wanted to read, it's a little bit self-serving for Tennessee Tech, so please indulge me on that, but I also wanted to read it for the rest of the board. And to prepare for this sunset hearing, I was asked to answer some questions. And one of the questions was, what were the major accomplishments of the board during our first 2 years? So I just want to read to you what I wrote, simply because I don't know that you would see it otherwise, and so I took the shot. So it says, it is difficult to define 2 specific accomplishments to summarize the past 2 years. It's easy to list several unique actions, such as establishing policies unique to the culture of Tennessee Tech, promoting performance-based pay, completing a presidential contract and comprehensive review of the president, supporting a new strategic plan, supporting some new and important administrative positions, and now supporting the development of a new tenure policy. I found it much easier to address this question in a broader, but I believe a more significant term. In summary, our first and greatest accomplishment is establishing the board as an effective leadership mechanism to guide and shape the university for the future. We are not simply a yes board for the university administration. In the first year, we spent a lot of time simply establishing policies, learning, and exploring what our role could or should be. And as such, we are not a board that exists for the pomp and circumstance to be loaded with university and celebrities. We are a board where all members are engaged with heartfelt concern for the future of the university. We are a diverse board with varying opinions, ideas, and abilities, and members are ready to debate and engage with their hearts. We are a board that is actively influencing the university and forcing the administration to react, respond, and to grow. I firmly believe that this board is forcing the university into aggressively pursuing the development of a more competitive, higher place of learning. And this new method of LGI governance prevents the university from being lethargic, stagnant, or unresponsive in this highly competitive educational environment. Despite the negative responses that often occur with change, I am truly proud of this board and the opportunity to serve the university in this capacity. I hope you all agree with my words. So,
well said.
Thank you. I have 2 other things. I'm sorry. Comments?
I just have a question, but I can wait till the other things, or do you want me just to?
Go.
I'm just wondering how you feel about the boards. What's your, I guess, overall impression now 2 years out, and kind of thinking about bumpy places, how the boards were formed? Is there any way that you would change those aspects of the boards?
First, thank you. I actually feel terrific. Like you said, some of the more, like you said, messy was maybe your word, but I mean, real life is messy, right? And running a university or running a state or running a business is, if it was kind of clean and simple, they wouldn't need us. And I appreciate the fact that you all have wrestled through some hard things. I can't come to a meeting, but I look at the minutes and what you all do. I'm like, okay, they're taking on real problems head on. So I compare that to a situation where, in the old world where you'd been part of the TVR board meeting where tech might have gotten talked about for 20 minutes a year, maybe. And I just think we're way better off in this way. And having a board who's holding the president accountable, as Tom just said, but also trying to think just overall mission-wise, is this entity doing what we're supposed to? So, it hadn't been perfect, but I'm actually, 2 years in, really pleased.
Is there anything you would change about the boards or the setup or the?
I don't know that I would. And again, it's kind of, I think my job was to kind of start off directionally and then let you all live it out for a while, and we'll let, then kind of come back and say, well, this is what works and this is what doesn't work. But directionally, I feel good about where we went, where we started and where we are. And I want to thank Representative Ryan Williams was one of the key architects of this, both the plan and literally of carrying the focus bill. And then Mike Kraus was kind of the heart and soul of making it happen. I guess he worked for the governor's office at that time. Since that time, he's gotten uppity and moved to THEC. But they were both kind of integral in the process. And there's not a lot that I'd go back and say, boy, I wish we'd have done this differently. So, when we had the University of Tennessee and we changed its board set up, and so when we did that, it kind of gave a moment to have discussion, and we'd seen how a smaller board works, pros and cons of that. I think it kind of became the role model the model for what we would do there as well. So, I personally am pleased. I guess I should ask you all, what are your reflections? Are the things that you all would change or do differently? Johnny, you're never shy.
Well, welcome here, Governor.
Thanks.
I think we're learning, and the one thing that I think we probably ought to have some help with is governance models and how we can govern better, because most of the people on this board have not had a lot of experience on higher education boards. Mm-hmm. And I think it is important that you have people who are going to be responsive and not just yes men or women and just sit back and listen to presentations. This board is unique, I think, in that it's not been willing to do that. We want to hear information, but we also want to ask questions and expect excellence at Tennessee Tech. We have to do that because of the excellent people who've been here before. So I think you're spot on with your change in the Focus Act and all those that helped you. I think there ought to be more training for us in the governance, and I think there are just areas of how we as a board can model leadership in higher education, because it seems to me that higher ed always wants to see what everybody else is doing. And that may not always be the best answer. And you were courageous to make the change because you could have just sat back and not worried about it. But I think the change will help Tennessee. And just this morning we were talking about how can we be more responsive, how can we be more efficient, how can we make this university a better place, and improve on what's already been done.
Let me maybe ask a specific question. I think particularly when your observations are good, particularly when you set up a new board, the challenge is to have a board be engaged, but have it not confuse its role with the administration's role. And I'm curious, and Dr. Oldham, everybody, I'd love to hear views of how we feel like we're doing here of getting that mix right of providing the oversight and accountability and being engaged enough to know what's happening, but not confusing the board's role with administrations. I'm curious how you'd grade yourself on that.
I think it's a challenge and it's a learning process, because coming into this as well, other than Johnny, I don't think any of us had ever served really in academia, so to speak. But you know, we had to learn in a hurry that we really have one employee, and that's the president, and that everything should function through him or through his office. It's challenging, even though as a board member you have a desire to directly influence, direct, task. We have to speak as a board and function as a board. And I think that will always be a continuing challenge to get that right. But I do think it's a learning process. I think that as boards continue, just because of the cycles of turnover, that it will get better. Yeah. And I think that we will continue to function better and better. I mean, the first year or two, mostly we're establishing policies and trying to figure out what we are supposed to do. I think only now are we sort of coming into our own as to being able to focus more just on Tennessee Tech, what makes it unique, and how to make it better, and pushing the university and the administration to do things. And Dr. Oldham, you know, I wish you would comment on that regard.
Well, if I was still in the classroom and having to give a grade, and I was a pretty tough grader, I'd say a B plus actually, and it is a learning curve. I think the board is to be commended tremendously, because we have thrown an enormous amount of information at this board, and I know it's taken a lot of time and energy on their part to wade through that, and as a administrative staff and faculty, we're having to learn on our side how to better educate the board on what we're currently doing, so that we can tap into their expertise and ideas to a greater extent. So, every board meeting, I think, just continues to get better. We had a very good discussion this morning around some very complex issues and ideas, concepts, budget, academic programs, and the level of dialogue continues to improve. It's just so it just keeps getting better. But it's a lot, and I think everybody realizes how much there is.
I do think that the Sunshine Law is a bit of a challenging aspect, because we all have the desire to be able to discuss things, and we can't. We have to reserve that for the meetings, and I think that the board honors that with full integrity. But we end up spending a lot more time talking to the administration, and going and we do take up a lot of time of the staff. But I think that's time well spent.
Are you talking about like in between meetings, like,
yes,
I'd love to have this conversation, but we technically can't, or we legally can't till we get back together. So
right.
In the meantime, you're just going to.
So I have a lot of discussions with the president, with different people on the staff. Yeah. And then they have discussions with other board members. It's a difficult process to maintain it. I understand the need for it, and I understand how it has to be, but it's a learning process, and it is inefficient, but it's at least honorable. So.
Democracy and efficiency aren't the same thing, I guess.
I hope that going forward, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I hope that going forward you'll always, I guess you or whoever is there, will always include a faculty member to sit in the seat. I think it's extremely important to have a faculty person at this table, and it's not always easy on either side, but. One of my faculty counterparts at another university said, in a way, it would be like if we went to HCA and said, all right, we're going to replace your board with all history professors, and we're going to go. and so, having that perspective, somebody who's living those policies and who can speak to the university, the faculty and staff, and even just thinking about explaining policies. Like for me to be able to say to them, to my colleagues, this is this is what post-tenure currently looks like.
Right.
I submit this packet of information every year, and I sit down with my dean and I am evaluated, just for them to know that, and it's something they might not know. I just think it's very important.
Yeah, I'm going to make this is a general comment, not about this board, since we have 6 of them. I think this is my personal opinion, it's a general observation. It's worked well where the faculty member has gotten above their own personal situation and realized, I need to speak for this vast group of faculty of different, different disciplines and diverse interests, et cetera. We've had a couple of places where it's been a little bit of an issue where that faculty person kept coming back to from where they were sitting in their department in that perspective, and in those cases it hadn't worked as well. So I think that would be the message I would push back to faculties is send us somebody that can represent the entire faculty.
You're right. Yeah, I think that I could certainly see where that would happen. And I know we've had discussions about, has the faculty member represented the entire university? I'm not here to represent the faculty. I am here to provide the faculty perspective.
Right.
And I feel like I've done that. I know we've certainly had conversations about that, but for me, providing that faculty and staff perspective does represent the whole university, because again, this is our experience. So, if the other board members are getting information from Dr. Oldham or from Dr. Stinson, that's one piece of the puzzle, but then to have all the pieces of the puzzle, I think it's really important.
I'd like to echo Dr. Geist's sentiments for the student body, and I think having a student on the board to be able to tell the sort of on-the-ground perspective, the perspective of the individual who's actually paying for this education and what they experience in their day-to-day lives and how that's impacting the student body as a whole, I feel that's invaluable. The ability to just be able to say, this is what other people are perceiving on campus. There are 12,000 students here, and this is the vibe you get when you're walking across campus. Just that contribution, I think, is invaluable no matter what campus you go to. And so I'd highly recommend that for any board. Just this opportunity has allowed me to it's a fantastic opportunity for me, but it also allows the campus community to sort of allow that perspective to be presented in a more direct way.
And I think both of those views are valid. Again, this is Bill speaking, okay? I think the key thing to remember in any institution like this, and it kind of comes back to the same thing with Sunshine Law, et cetera, is at the end of the day, I think we have to remember that this is the state's university. And the 6.6 million people that are Tennesseans, we kind of, this group represents them, those folks, for this particular mission of the state. And I think that's the key thing. We've had lots of discussions about, well, it's whose university is it? Well, at the end of the day, it's the people of the state of Tennessee's university. And so our mission is to make certain we're providing them the very best product. And so, yeah, you'll hopefully bring the entire faculty's perspective, and hey, here's how students see that and can speak for that body. At the end of the day, though, like I said, you need to put back on your hat of, I'm representing 6.6 million Tennesseans as a public institution. And there are times that's awkward and hard, but like things like sunshine rules, et cetera. And it's times it's awkward because you're thinking, well, personally, I feel like such and such. But that's all of our roles at the end of the day.
Governor, I might say I'm actually a second generation member of this board. I wasn't on the original board. But
That's
I
right.
think they've done an excellent job getting everything set up. I will say this, having had previous experience on a much larger board, I like the size that you created here. I think it allows us as a board to be much more engaging and interactive, and everybody has a very key role to play instead of being part of a large board and you just feel like you're just one of many. Everybody's got a spot on the team, so to speak. So I think that was a good move.
Yeah, I actually strongly believe the bigger the board, the less the board's voice is actually impactful. I think the bigger it gets, to be honest with you, whether it's a university or anything else, then the president or the executive director ends up running, because there's so many folks. Everybody says, well, that's somebody else on this 25-member board or 30-member board is worried about it. And here, my sense is, from the very first meeting, when, again, I'll go back to that discussion around fees that you all had whenever, I don't remember when that first meeting was, but it was active, engaged, and I walked out and texted Ryan and said, this is going to work. These folks they're owning this thing in a really healthy way, and I think you're right, Ryan. I don't know if there'd been 28 of you around this board around this table if that would have happened.
I think it's also, we've been working a lot on metrics and what do we measure at our level. We don't need to get down into the minutia, although it's reported a lot to us. We've been trying to discern what's important for us to measure.
Yeah.
Because if you don't measure, you can't improve.
Right.
And it's difficult in higher education. There's been a lot of pushback on trying to measure everything and trying to be better at what we're doing. And that's another area I think that we could use some guidance and help in, probably all the boards could, is what's really important. What's important to you, what's important to the legislature, what's important to the people of Tennessee that we as the board members ought to really focus on and try to understand these metrics that are important and then hold people accountable to them.
I think that's great.
Anything else?
Governor, it's Purna Sagurti from New York. Sorry, couldn't be there in person.
Good to hear from you, Purna. Sorry to miss you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just want to let you know that I'm not sure who actually picked the board. I'm sure you had a big say in it. But I'm on a number of boards that this board has a sense of ownership, which I don't see anywhere else. And that ownership comes from the commitment and the loyalty they have for the school. So I think all of you did a great job in identifying the right people, and that sense of ownership always trumps everything else. So well done.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. And like I said, I appreciate all those right people agreeing to serve. I can remember having phone calls with most of you. Some of you who didn't believe that I was me when I called.
It wasn't me.
Oh, what? Oh, that's right. That wasn't you.
Barbara.
That's Barbara. That's right. It was Barbara. Exactly right. Sorry, that was Barbara. But I appreciate that, Purna. And again, that whole sense of ownership, that was our mission when we were driving for this. So thanks, and thanks for being willing to serve.
Governor, I will say, you weren't quite honest with us when you told us this was going to be really easy. That's how I remember you describing it, was this would be really easy, it wouldn't take much time, just kind of show up, rubber stamp what they say. It's not worked like that.
That was the sales part. This is operations.
No, this has been hard, and I think that's a good sign. If I'm you, I would think that's a good thing to hear. This has been hard. I think we didn't even know what we didn't know, and we're starting to figure out what we don't know, which means we've still got a long way to go. The faculty's helping us a lot. The staff and administration are helping us a huge amount, but we've got a long way to go to learn.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate that. And the truth was, when we set these boards up, because we hadn't ever had anything that looked like this, we didn't really know, okay, when you have a board for one school, what's it going to look like? But I define it, to me, it's watching you all, and maybe you all as much or more than any other board, it's been a process of defining not just who the board is, but who the school is, and we'll all be better for that process down the road.
I'll just say thank you for your focus on education. I think that's setting that bar and really you've set it high, and we hope that that's the way it continues. And you know, as administrations changes, everybody's got their passion for what they want to accomplish, but we hope that this same level of passion for education and for the educational systems sticks and really helps us do our job more effectively.
Yeah, ditto. And I'm married to a high school teacher, so yeah. Well,
I was actually thinking this. I'll embarrass him. I'm in the process of cleaning out now. I'm said this is a job where when you lose your job, you lose your house and your car and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm cleaning out office and the house and everything else, and I found when you're running for office, you're in debates, and so you don't know what the questions will be, but you know at the end they're going to give you like a 1-minute closing statement. And my 1-minute closing statement was about a guy who had grown up going to Tennessee public K through 12 schools, gone to one of our public universities, and now spends his time flying a spacecraft around the air. And I didn't even know Barry at the time, but I actually used you as an example of closing of that. This is why we have to be great.
I understand why it only took 1 minute, though.
But the point is, like I said, I'd read about you but didn't know you. I thought we want to produce people who are literally ready for the world and who come out of our public schools, because that's where most of our kids are going to come out of, or most of our future employees. So, the mission's a big one.
Governor, just to demonstrate our success, the way we start all of our meetings is usually honoring some student or something, that's more student-centric from the university. And I know you missed it, but we actually have some students here. There is a cybersecurity team, oh, wow. And Amanda Kale is here from something you'll be very familiar with. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Joe, would you come up and give us a 30-second summary, and then Amanda follow up?
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. So on the first row here, we have some representatives from the Exceptional Cybersecurity Education Research and Outreach Center, or CROC, at Tennessee Tech. And so what we are specifically is a cybersecurity competition team that recently placed in the top 10 nationally in the Collegiate Penetration Testing Competition. So in this competition, we think like attackers to find vulnerabilities in computer systems and then produce a report that explains how to mitigate these vulnerabilities that we discover. Additionally, we all were part of the official Department of Energy Red Team that helps to train the next generation of cyber defenders of the electric grid, the energy grid, from threats from things like nation-state actors. So we emulate these nation-state actors to try to provide a realistic simulation of the types of actions that they might perform. So we're all cybersecurity students and have had an exceptional experience at Tennessee Tech.
Thank you, Joe.
I'd love to. Can I ask two or three? How'd you end up at Tech?
So I came to Tech because of its wonderful reputation for computer science. I'm actually from Tellico Plains, Tennessee.
Oh, cool.
A very yes. So a very small high school, but I had never had a computer science class before I came to Tech. And then through Tech, through CROC, I discovered my passion for cybersecurity, and now that's what I do. I decided to get a master's degree through the Cyber Core program that Tennessee Tech was granted a few years ago. So I was lucky enough to be chosen as one of the first Cyber Core scholars, which is a fast track to working in government employment for cybersecurity jobs. So I'm very thankful that that came to Tech, and actually all of us are now actually part of the Cyber Core program. So that's been a great way to help grow cybersecurity at Tech.
That's cool, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Amanda?
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. I'm Amanda Kale. I'm a graphic design intern at TTU iCube. I've been working there for about 2 years, and so I played a big role in the development of the Tennessee Together project that you're now familiar with and part of. So over the 2 years, I've been able to work with the whole iCube team, just everyone from so many different backgrounds, and so we've been able to work together and develop this project. And so I was able to have a voice in, how can we best spread the message of this project and get people involved, and how can we incorporate graphic design, because that's my major, to really spread that message in the best way. So I got to work on a lot of those maps and stuff that you saw.
That's really cool. And how did you end up at Tech?
I'm actually a Cookeville native, so I've grown up here for a long time. So Tech was always the most appealing option, because I was able to stay close to home and pursue my interests. And actually, when I came here, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I started as studying English literature, but then I discovered that Tech had this new growing art program for graphic design. So I was really interested in that. So I'm really lucky to be one of the first few groups of students actually to graduate with a degree in graphic design.
That's cool. Thanks.
She's starting her own business too. I just think that that's just so cool and needs to be said.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you. That's cool. Thank you. So, Governor, one last thing. We have drafted a resolution. This is a resolution to recognize Bill Haslam, Governor of the State of Tennessee, for his outstanding leadership and vision for higher education. Whereas Governor Haslam oversaw the passage of the Focus on College and University Success Act, known as the Focus Act, to support the state's education attainment goals by ensuring that our higher education institution and systems can best support the needs of our students. And whereas through his initiatives, Governor Haslam has led transformation in the higher education for the good of the state and its citizens by establishing a system that encourages universities to be more agile and responsive to their communities and students. And whereas more Tennesseans are going to college and earning post-secondary degrees or credentials as a result of Governor Haslam's Drive to 55 initiative. And whereas under his leadership, Tennessee has ascended to be a national leader in education. And whereas Governor Haslam's mission for higher education has positively influenced Tennessee's workforce and economic development, as evidenced by the creation of 400,000 private sector jobs in his time in office. And whereas through his bold, fearless, and confident vision for higher education, Governor Haslam has created more opportunities for Tennesseans that promise to improve the quality of life in our state. Be it resolved by Tennessee Technological University Board of Trustees that in light of this information and in appreciation for all of his service and accomplishments, this 6th day of December 2018, that we honor Governor Bill Haslam for his transformative vision that has left an enduring mark on higher education in Tennessee.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. I'm honored. Thank you. It's really nice.
Sir, just to be official, we have to have a motion to adopt this resolution.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt that resolution.
Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Stites.
You want me to close my eyes while you vote?
Please.
Do we need any discussion? No. Is there any? Okay.
Here, here.
Kay, please.
Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Strongly aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Sigardi?
Aye.
Thanks, Frank.
Stites? Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. I very much am honored and appreciate the thought.
Yeah. Ryan, would you come up?
Let's go back there. That'd be great.
I promise we only made one version in case it didn't matter. There wasn't a fallback on the.
They haven't amended 2 or 3 times. Oh my gosh.
Let me just say one final thing before I take off. I really do appreciate you. The words, this has been messier and harder than we thought. I very much believe, but I strongly believe Tech is a better school than it was 2 years ago, and it'll be even better 2 years from now. It's because of the work that you folks are doing. I do want to thank again, Ryan Williams did a lot of the heavy lifting when this got passed. Mike Krause helped us think through this and think it through and work it through, and there are 2 of the key people. So one thing about being governor, you get a lot of the credit, but it's a little bit like being quarterback of the football team. When you do well, everybody thinks you're great. When you don't, they don't. But typically somebody else has done all the blocking and tackling. So thank you all, Ryan and Mike, both very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining us. I know it's an effort to get here.
Sorry to talk and run, but
no problem. Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. The meeting continues. So we are ready, actually, I don't think I've missed anything, ready for item number 4, the President's Report. So Dr. Oldham.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this over to start with to Director Mike Krause, Director of Tennessee Higher Education Commission. Really appreciate Mike's being with us today. I think he would come even if we didn't offer him Ralph's Donuts, but that always helps. Mike's going to share with you a little bit of the state perspective and where Tennessee Higher Education Commission is right now. Let me just say, and Mike doesn't need me to give him compliments, but really over the past couple of years, particularly under Mike's leadership, Tennessee Higher Education Commission has really gone to another level and providing a significant level of leadership in the state for all of higher education. Appreciate what he does and what the commission does. So I appreciate you being here today, Mike.
Absolutely, Dr. Oldham and Chairman Jones. Wouldn't have missed the opportunity to be here. Throughout the fall, we've been traveling to all of the locally governed institutions just to kind of circle back. It's been almost 2 years. Want to do 2 big things today. First, give you an update on where the state is, really just a segue from the governor's comments about tech being part of this larger context of higher education in the state. We've got some pretty dramatic progress that's been made that we should all be proud of, so I want to walk you through that. And second, I want to walk you through some of Tennessee Tech's progress. There are certain things I'll be able to say today I can't say at the other universities because they're not true. And I really liked what Trustee Stites said about what's important to measure. And several years ago, the state made a decision. What was important to measure in higher education was outcomes. How quickly were students progressing through the continuum? At a university like this, research is a very important outcome as well. And so I just want to bring you an update on that. Another update would be that the tree I fell out of when I was 5 years old in Tech Village and broke my arm is still standing, disappointingly, despite multiple requests to Dr. Oldham to cut down this dangerous obstacle. It's really fun when I get to come back to campus, and you all know Tech has such a personal imprint on my life because my dad was a Navy sailor who was the son of a waitress and a truck driver who had a great officer that said, you need to go to college, and he found himself at Tennessee Tech, and then he became an electrical engineer, and my life was different because of that. And so I'm always grateful to be back on campus. Let me start with a really quick reminder of where we started, and this is circa 2012. That red bar is where Tennessee fell in terms of the number of Tennesseans with a degree or any credential beyond high school. About 30.8% of Tennesseans had a degree at that time in 2012, so hold on to that number because I think a couple things happened. One, we had a little bit of a burning bridge moment as a state with industry where employers were coming to Governor Haslam and saying something dramatic has to change or we're going to leave because we're having to interview 100 people to fill 4 jobs. And that was the summer of 2012. The governor did a series of roundtables around the state and heard a consistent theme from business that higher education had to do something dramatically different. And so there we stood at 30.8%. I can report to you now, we are at 41%. So think about that exponential growth, and Dr. Geis can tell you especially, these are really hard metrics. It's hard to say, I'm going to dramatically increase success by 10% in this class. And yet that's what's happened across the state. So where we are now is not where we started. First, in addition to that, is that just more Tennesseans are going to college. And I'd say if there's any thematic element throughout this presentation, it's we should be really optimistic. Kentucky would kill to have this statistic right now. They don't. Theirs in some ways is going the other direction. Tennessee has dramatically increased the number of students going to college, and something I'm most proud of at our agency. I know that you've been developing your kind of 2-year relationship with THEC, and sometimes it's hard to explain what we do. But the most basic thing we try to do is advocate for higher education to the government. I can assure you that in the list of thankless jobs is advocating for higher education to the government. And then in turn, the other half of our job is I often am advocating for government back to higher education, to Dr. Oldham, representing something that's gone on in state government. But the net result that I'm very proud of, that's the result of a lot of people's advocacy, is this. We are 13th in the nation right now in terms of investment. That is absolutely powerful. And if you'll look around at some of the states we've now passed up, to know that we've accelerated ahead of Connecticut, that's dramatic. And Representative Ryan Williams has played a very significant role in ensuring that the legislature funds Tennessee higher education. Virtually every year for the last 5 years, we've continued to increase our appropriations. And as I'm also sure you know, Representative Williams is a strident advocate for Tennessee Tech. And if you are a state official going to go meet with Representative Williams, I can promise you, you're going to find yourself talking about Tennessee Tech. And so Cookeville and the Plateau are really lucky to have him, and also in the photography role currently during this meeting. Let's talk about the formula. The old way of funding higher education in Tennessee was about who showed up on the 14th day. So on the 14th day, we took a snapshot, and that's how you got your money. I will tell you, because I was at THEC then, that was a really hard product to sell to the legislature. Hey, we're really good at getting people to come for 2 weeks. Help us generate funding. In 2010-11, we switched to this outcomes base, and I will tell you, as the person that advocates for more funding to the legislature, this is a much easier case to make now, because when we ask for new funds, and I'll show you this in a moment specific to tech, when we ask for new funds, it's because you have done better with students, and you've done better with research. And this shows, since the formula was implemented, we've increased appropriations dramatically, and just since 15-16, we've had a 23, almost 24% increase in appropriations. And again, if you all know even a casual examination of other states' higher education funding patterns, this is not going on in other states. Would love to talk now and focus in on Tennessee Tech. And I remember during our board orientation 18 months ago when we talked about the Formula 1, it looks like a little bit of a cipher at first. But its core is this belief that we're measuring what matters to the state. And Tennessee Tech has had a dramatic but steady climb. If I'd have spoken to you last year, I would have said, hey, Tennessee Tech is number 2 in the state in terms of generating funding through the formula. And I would argue that would have been really good news. I can tell you today, Tennessee Tech is number 1. Tennessee Tech leads every university in the state in terms of the funding formula. I won't go into all the reasons that's why, but I'll tell you that it means something that is going on here is working. Most of it has to do, in my opinion, with Dr. Oldham and his student affairs staff taking a different look at how we advise students. Many of the decisions that have led here actually weren't very easy ones, yet they were made, and I'm here to tell you that this year alone it netted $3.9 million additional dollars. And most importantly, behind that $3.9 million are more students, like we just heard from, who are graduating. This is hard decisions paying off, in our view, at THEC. We try at THEC, and I think Dr. Oldham's seen this, and certainly Dr. Stinson as well, we try not to use the formula as a regulatory tool. The formula is best used as a consultative tool for us to say, hey, here's what you're doing great at, and here's maybe what you could improve on. Our staff, to echo the governor's words, we have an incredibly talented staff at THEC, people that have chosen public service for the state of Tennessee. 2 of them are with me here today, Crystal Collins and Alex Monday. And I'll tell you, as they pour over the spreadsheets, and we run about $2 billion out the door at our agency, as they monitor our $2 billion set of oversight spreadsheets, typically the way Alex and Crystal approach it is they come to us and say, we have a really cool idea for this university. And we had one of those meetings, Dr. Oldham and Dr. Stinson, a couple years ago. Hey, here's some things Tech could do. Tech was already doing many of them, though, and now you're starting to see the response. Right here, Tech literally made its money by dramatically increasing its output of bachelor's degrees. You had large classes graduating. Let me tell you why I think that's really special at Tech. I learned something watching my dad major in electrical engineering, and that was do not major in electrical engineering. It is really hard. Tech generating more bachelor's degrees on a base of STEM majors, that's pretty special. These are really hard majors, and there's no doubt, they are more rigorous in some ways than other majors, and the success rates are lower in many universities. They aren't here. That's really special. The other thing here that I think is important to talk about is research and service. That's been steadily climbing, and as Tech continues, we heard from our cybersecurity students and the investment that's been made in Tech in the cybersecurity field. As Tech continues to build that capacity, I think you're going to see the research and service dollars tick up as well. Finally, the degrees per 100 FTE, meaning for every 100 students that are enrolled full-time, that an adequate ratio of degrees are being awarded, and your 6-year graduation rate have improved dramatically. And as a result, we're seeing that in the formula. Just to echo here and to quantify this, so it's different for me to say, well, you're doing better with bachelor's degrees. You have increased your bachelor's degree production by almost 500 credentials. That's seismic for the institution. Before I pivot to some remaining challenges, what I would say that we are going to continue to do. First, just so the trustees know, this formula is built collaboratively. Dr. Oldham was actually on the original design committee when he was at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and now that he is a president, every president sits at the table every summer. We take a look at the formula and we think, do we need to make some tweaks? Every 5 years, we do a pretty dramatic redesign if needed, and that's going to be coming in 2020. Dr. Oldham will be involved with us throughout, of course, with Dr. Stinson, and we'll look to continue to optimize this formula to, again, echo Trustee Steight's words. What's important to measure? Student success. That's what the formula measures. Tennessee Tech, by this measure, is doing incredible in terms of student success. But, of course, I want to use this opportunity to give you 2 challenges. First, opportunity in Tennessee is not uniform. If you look across the state of Tennessee, how you're doing in your life has a lot to do with where you live. And I know Trustee Rose knows this through her work, her day job. Looking at the plateau, this percentage is the number of college graduates in a given area. If you visit some of these counties, and I have, as soon as you pull in the county, it's evidence that there was no economic recovery here. It never came. We have got to do better in terms of reaching our rural counties. Technology provides a powerful vehicle for that, I think. We're working through some ideas there. I am not so convinced that our most underutilized facilities in the state aren't high schools who turn off all their lights at 3 p.m., yet have classrooms and CTE labs we should be using at night for adults. Stay tuned. We're working on how to make that come to life. But I am hoping every university will take a look at this map and say, we have got to do better on the Cumberland Plateau. And we got to do better in rural West Tennessee. And what worries me is many of the jobs these non-college graduates hold as we speak are not durable jobs. And in the next downturn that is inevitable, they will find themselves, I worry they'll find themselves in a difficult position. A second challenge, how you do in college in Tennessee has to do with how much money your family makes. That's what the data is very clear about. Thinking through your freshman class from a risk stratified model is a recommendation we are really commending to the campuses right now. The freshmen you enroll next fall are going to have very important indicators about whether or not they need some interventions. By the way, you know a really important intervention for a low-income student? Call roll. And then if they don't go to class, text them. These are not expensive things. I will also tell you, this board, Tech is doing many of those things. That's why your success rates are going up. So to some extent, I'm bringing better choir techniques to the choir because you all have really bought into this. But I think it's really important for our next step in Tennessee to make sure that where you live or what your parents make isn't what determines whether or not you become a college graduate. And we've got some vehicles out there we think that can mitigate both of those challenges. With that, Chairman Jones or Dr. Oldham, I'd take any questions the board has.
Thank you. Questions?
Question. We're doing really well graduating people in big numbers, but in Tennessee, we just learned at this meeting the graduation of high school kids coming out of Tennessee schools is pretty flat. So we're going to be pressed to put as many people in the pipeline as we have currently in the pipeline and are graduating. Plus another stress on us is we're graduating our people faster because we have one of the lowest cost of any school in Tennessee to get through a system because we're doing it in closer to 4 years than we are 6 years. So my question is this: if we're graduating so many, sooner or later, if we don't have the input from the other side, we're going to catch it right on the chin. Is there a way that the system could, and I don't have a suggestion, but I just am asking the question, is there a way the system could mitigate that fact somewhat, that we don't have the opportunity to bring in as many people? as we're graduating? Because we get penalized in the future if that thing goes down, and maybe it's not even our fault. As one example was, we got slammed when the legislature changed the requirement for master's degrees for teachers. Boom, we lost hundreds of graduates in the master's program here. And that's just the kind of thing I'm wondering about if the formula has been given consideration in that area.
Really good question with two answers. One, every state is facing a little bit of a demographic shift in terms of their high school production. And in fact, if you look at 2025, there's a really steep cliff coming virtually nationwide. We're actually less sensitive to that here, though, at least for your state portion of money. And that's a very important point to me. You're only getting you're getting 30% of your appropriations from Tennessee, and then you're generating 70% internally. But at least for your 30% share, Trustees states, that formula is much less sensitive to enrollment fluctuations. You can enroll dramatically less students, and your state share is not even going to notice that as long as you remain efficient with the ones you have and continue to succeed. But I want to make clear, that's for the state portion. And every day when Dr. Oldham and Dr. Stinson are sitting there looking at the financial model, they're thinking a whole lot about 70% the state isn't giving. So every point you just made stands. One response I would give is that I think as our high school classes drop, we need to push hard to get adults here. I think that Tennessee Tech has great opportunity to emulate some of the things being done for adults around the nation. I would say even here in state, the University of Memphis Finish Line program, it bears looking at. And that's essentially bringing adults in, and you have the shell for it because Tech has a great interdisciplinary studies degree. But using that degree as a vehicle to bring in the adult with some college no degree, or maybe the adult that never went, I think could be some way to mitigate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Dr. Oldham, you have anything else?
I thought it would be best for me, and as Mike leaves to catch a plane, I think he's running a little late for Atlanta, but appreciate him being here today. I thought it would be best for me to follow up after Director Krause was able to give you sort of a higher level perspective on things. Certainly, it's good news. It's always beneficial to follow good news. I'm incredibly proud on behalf of Tennessee Tech that we're in this position that we are now, as far as the #1 performer from the funding formula. And Trustee Stites, to your question throughout the day, is that, what should we be measuring? It's a very important question. I think the state, to some extent, the state has told us what we need to be measuring because that's what they're willing to pay for, and the funding formula lays that out pretty directly. And so it's important for us that, not to say that we're limited to those particular items, but those are key, obviously, because that's the state's interest. They've identified where the priorities are in terms of state interests, and we want to continue to meet those expectations. Some things that Mike didn't quite hit on that I'll just follow up on in the THEC recommendation for funding, along with how we performed in the formula. Also, there's a recommendation, a capital building recommendation, a new engineering building for Tennessee Tech. This will be the first new engineering building since 1971 on this campus. We're currently #4 on that priority list as recommended by THEC. Certainly there's no guarantee the legislature will review that and the governor's office will review that proposal, but that is within the funding scope of a typical year, and so we're hopeful that that will be funded. There's also $900,000 of recurring dollars being recommended by THEC for our Carnegie reclassification that occurred a few years ago. That would bring the total recurring dollars for that effort to $2.1 million of recurring. So we're excited about that. And it also has a recommendation for continued about a $7.7 million improvement in capital maintenance dollars for the campus. So we're excited about all of those. I also want to connect some dots here real quick. We heard from the cybersecurity team A few minutes ago, I whispered to the governor during that brief presentation to make sure he remembered. Actually, the governor was very instrumental in helping us get some additional state funding behind that cyber security effort, cybersecurity education effort. And for the past 2 years, the state has provided an extra $500,000 that has helped make a lot of those things possible. I think he felt proud about that. I hoped he would. And the state commitment is for another 2 years of that particular funding. So that's the kind of thing that we typically want to encourage and try to do. So let me talk just briefly, if I can, about what got us here, what we put in place several years ago, actually, that helped us achieve this particular milestone of being the top performer in the funding formula this year. As you can imagine, these things don't happen overnight. They don't happen spontaneously. But sometimes we forget what started the process and what decisions and what efforts led to this. Clearly, excuse me. Clearly, the metrics are critical here, and the metrics that the state has laid out in the funding formula revolve around, as Mike said, revolve strictly around student success, almost exclusively. So the number of degrees granted in a given year, it's typically on a 3-year average. The efficiency at which those degrees are granted, so graduation rates, although it doesn't specifically measure, the funding formula doesn't specifically keep track of retention rates. Obviously, that's critical because if you don't retain a student, you're never going to graduate them. So that's a precursor to getting them graduated. So all these are very important. Roughly 5 years ago, we launched the new strategic plan at that point in time called Flight Plan. Flight Plan looked at peer institutions, looked at a lot of best practices. We implemented a lot of those strategies with specific metrics, including graduation rate, including retention rate, and several others that speak specifically to these issues and have put us in a place now, by implementing those strategies, they put us in a place where we are performing at the top of the funding formula. Again, that didn't happen naturally. I want to give an enormous amount of credit to the faculty and staff of Tennessee Tech because they are the ones that made it all happen, okay? And I'll highlight a few of those examples here in just a moment. But just to give you some idea, I know Mike gave a 3-year improvement in number of degrees conferred. I'll go back 5 years because that's where we started Flight Plan. We've had a 20% increase in bachelor's degrees from 5 years ago. That's pretty remarkable. Our student retention for first-time freshmen has gone up for a 3-year average from 5 years ago from about 72% to 78%. So it's a 6 percentage point increase in retention rates for first-year students, for freshmen over that time period. Obviously, enrollment plays into this, and we'll probably hit on that again in a minute. So what did we do specifically that really moved the needle in terms of retention and graduation rate? Class attendance, Mike already mentioned. It's sort of, maybe it's too simple for us to think about initially, but the number one predictor of student success their first year of college is class attendance. It's the number one. If they go to class, they actually make better grades, and they persist, and they graduate on time.
It's also the number one predictor of success at your job.
That's very true. It's a very good point. It's a very good point. So, not to be punitive toward a student in this regard, but to use that as an indicator of students that are at risk, we implemented a program where we monitored, with the help of a lot of wonderful faculty members, class attendance. And faculty would let the appropriate folks, the advisors on campus know if students were missing class. And actually, it's very sensitive. If a student misses more than 2 classes in the first 6 weeks of the fall semester, they're at risk. That's how sensitive it is. And so we were able to provide some intervention at a critical time, and we saw dramatic improvements in retention from that mechanism. And that's not just here. That's happened at other institutions as well. The other key point is advising. And again, most of us would probably say, well, of course, advising is critical. And so we invested heavily. We put a lot of resources at the start of Flight Plan in hiring a cadre of professional advisors to specialize and work specifically with first-year students on campus. And we believe that has substantially paid off. And obviously, we want to perform well by the formula, but you got to keep in mind, every student is important. That's why we're here. And the better we can help students be successful and make sure their investment, their higher education investment pays off for them, everybody wins. And so that's what this is all about. Again, I want to highlight all the faculty that have played a significant role in that. But just to give you an idea, the graduation rates, and it's not just the 6-year rate, because now we use the 6-year graduation rate primarily because that's the national standard, and it's considered 1.5 times the typical length that you would expect to get a degree. So nationally, that's sort of how you're benchmarked. Our 6-year graduation rate this year, for the first time, exceeded 55%. Now, that is actually a significant improvement. I'm not happy with that. I think we can do a lot better. But that is a significant improvement. As of 2 years ago, that was 50%. So that's a 5 percentage point improvement in a couple of years. It's pretty remarkable. But we're seeing improvements at all levels. The 4-year graduation rate this year topped 34% for the first time ever. So more than 1/3 of our students are graduating now in 4 years, which is it's a good trend. We're seeing 2 years ago for the first time, our 5-year graduation rate topped 50%. So over half of our students are graduating in 5 years or less now. And so the trend is significant. And the bottom line is the students are getting a better bargain. They're getting a better value for their dollar. So let me highlight a few faculty, and these are just examples. Okay, I could provide dozens of similar examples. Kara Sisk, Assistant Professor in Human Ecology. Tech's Child Life program is the first of its kind to be offered at the bachelor's level in the state and is directed by a certified child life specialist, Kara Sisk. She's giving students the opportunity to learn from professionals and to work with children and families throughout the curriculum. 6 seniors at Tennessee Tech recently shared the innovative experiential learning opportunities that are preparing them for work in the challenging field of child life with professionals from across the Southeast. Child life specialists are there to make scary situations less scary. A child life specialist is a psychosocial team member who serves children and families during times of situations of stress. Tech uses a simulation lab to prepare students. Nursing students play the roles of family members and medical professionals. Adam Holly, he's Assistant Professor of Physics. Exciting adventure and an engaging research opportunity for his students, solving the mysteries of physics to help understand the laws that explore the origin and evolution of the universe. Holly and his students are busting neutrons from the nuclei of atoms and looking at the decay of those neutrons, exploring ways to make measurements of the decay rate more precise. Their work is highlighted in a study published in the journal Science. And let me let you know, Science is probably one of the 2 premier publications, journals in interdisciplinary science, so it's a tremendous publication. The study involves researchers at Los Alamos National Lab and 11 other institutions, including Tennessee Tech. Bedelia Russell, Associate Professor of Nursing. Her work in the community comes back to campus as relevant and interesting learning opportunities for students. Through her work with the Heart of the Cumberland, new student clinical experiences are in development and will soon give students a chance to do clinical experience work in schools with BEST groups. BEST groups provide school-based support groups for elementary and middle school children who have experienced loss due to death, divorce, incarceration, deployment, deportation, or other difficult family circumstances. Jason Beach, Associate Professor in Curriculum and Instruction. Jason has created the Vision Research Center that is an acronym standing for Virtual Immersive Interactive Observation, designed to work with immersive virtual reality and explore its impact and future in teaching, learning, and the K-12 and K-12 education. Improves our teacher candidates, puts Tennessee Tech's teacher education program ahead of everyone else in the state, even the nation. The work has the promise of using full-body immersion to simulate walking the students to the lunchroom, being immersed in 360-degree classroom videos, practicing full lessons, and other situations of that nature. Jason says a lot of the artwork and interactions were developed by students in Tennessee Tech's iCube. It's limitless. Any type of situation you can think of in a class, we can simulate. Mark Melikar, Assistant Professor of Economics. Mark's style is innovative and fun, incorporating real-world concepts and applying them to concepts at Tennessee Tech in a way that resonates with his students. He used a Quality Enhancement Proposal Award for his development of a Student Consumer Price Index, which was built and is maintained by students in intermediate macroeconomics. Mark says he came to Tech 5 years ago to be at an institution that values quality undergraduate education, but also emphasizes research and believes Tech offers that unique blend. He tries to help students make a deeper connection with the content in his classes by using popular media clips containing economic themes and concepts. These are 5. I could go on, but I wanted you to get a flavor of the quality of instruction and creative effort that goes on this campus on a daily basis. Fundamentally, that's what drives, despite the programs that we do, which are important, and they do make a difference. Ultimately, this is how the students are best served, and that's what we intend to support and we're extremely proud of, because that's the value proposition for these students. So what are the challenges? What are the challenges that we face going forward? Obviously, enrollment. We've talked about enrollment. It's hard to graduate record numbers of students if you can't enroll them to start with. And so enrollment is a primary focus. We know we have significant external competition for students, and we have to be able to respond aggressively in a competitive environment. Part of that answer is to make sure our scholarship dollars are put to best use in practical terms. And we know that although merit-based scholarships are important in the scheme of things, we know that there's also a role and a significant opportunity for need-based scholarships. And so we're looking as aggressively as possible on how to make sure that financial resources are not the limiting factor for good students who want to come to Tennessee Tech. We want to do everything possible to make it affordable for everyone, despite their background and family income. And really speaking to some of Mike's slides about the low-income issue and how to address that best for that. That's a state need that we need to try to address, and we're hoping to do that. Number of academic programs. We talked some this morning about the number of academic programs we have and how we routinely monitor those, and we want to make sure they're as effective and efficient as possible. But also we've got to continue to look at new academic programs, emerging academic programs that are essential to the emerging workforce opportunities that the state needs to be able to supply. As I speak routinely with individuals both at the state level and in the corporate world about opportunities for corporate growth in Tennessee, talent is the underlying issue in all conversations. They're looking for talent. We're in the best position to be able to supply that talent, and we want to make sure that we can continue to do that. So how do we go about doing it? Well, one thing is we've talked a lot in previous meetings about the strategic plan, our new strategic plan, Tennessee Tech Tomorrow. A lot of what's in that strategic plan, I'm not going to go through that now, but just to connect the dots here real quickly, a lot of what's in that strategic plan, which has been developed with a large number of faculty and staff, and now that's in implementation phases with a lot of effort on their parts. A lot of those initiatives speak directly to these particular things around student success. So the opportunities to create new academic programs responsive to those needs and the state's needs, as well as students, to make sure that we have technologically infused programs throughout the campus. So we're not stuck in the past, but we're looking toward the future and making sure that all programs, whether they're a typical program that's technology based or not, that there's a technological component that makes sure that it's relevant to the needs of the modern world. To continue to increase research and scholarly activity. That's our calling card. That's our resume as a university to ensure that we have the credibility that we need. Interdisciplinary opportunities are a big component that we will continue to need to push. And then lastly, as I've addressed with the board previously, the concept of a grand challenge for the university that encompasses a lot of these things in a more focused, coherent way that can really lead to tangible outcomes that benefit our surrounding environment in particular, and engage students and faculty in meaningful ways to ultimately, I think, address the most important aspect of what we do, and that's relevance. We've got to continue to be relevant as an institution. I believe the strategic plan lays that out in pretty good terms. So in summary, let me just say, here's the deal. There are challenges, but we can do this, and we will do this. We have proven that we can rise to the challenge. We've shown that repeatedly. We showed that through flight plan. We've raised graduation rates. We've raised retention rates. We can do a lot more than just that. So momentarily, we're celebrating our success right now, but we've got a lot more to do. And we have, most importantly, maybe we need to recognize we have an honorable mission. Our mission is incredibly honorable. We are serving the students of this state and the needs of the state. And I hope we always recognize that. Sometimes we got to get out of our own way. Recently, I was told that in a campus meeting, someone made the comment that Tech would not be able to hire a certain person for a search, a candidate that was applying for a job. And the quote I was told is, because we're just Tennessee Tech. We've got to wipe that out of our vocabulary. We're not just Tennessee Tech. We are Tennessee Tech. And we should be proud of the fact that we are Tennessee Tech. I'm certainly proud of that fact. We should all be proud of this university and the graduates we send out into the world. You saw some examples, wonderful examples of that just a moment ago. Who wouldn't be excited to hire those students as they graduate? You know they're going to go off and do fantastic things. I see us as a university that serves the people, the everyday people, the regular people, the people who lead our communities, our companies, our schools. We're the university for the people who want to make their communities better places to live, who want to lead the way, who want to make a positive difference in the lives of others. We are Tennessee Tech. I believe in our faculty, our staff, our students, and I think probably as most of you have had now the late George H.W. Bush on my mind recently. He once said, think about every problem, every challenge we face. The solution to each starts with education. Tech is where solutions to life's problems will be found. Tech is where the world will be changed by our faculty and by our students. I'm certainly proud to stand before you as president representing them. It's their work. It's not mine. And I'm always proud to say wings up. So thank the board for all that you've done and continue to do. And if there's any questions I can answer now, I'll be glad to.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, moving on along our agenda, we're ready for item number 5. This is Executive Committee Report and Recommendation. And the first item is a report from the Executive Committee on the board evaluation. And we had a meeting, I think November the 13th, to review the board evaluations. All of those evaluations and a summary is in the board book. Well, not the evaluations themselves, but it's a summary, I think. In today's board book, yeah. But if you look at tab, I think it's 5.1.1.1, there is a single page that just says discussion items related to the board's effectiveness. And the main point of it is the executive committee is charged with looking at the evaluations. Well, then what do we do with it after that? And the idea was to, and well, just to say where this came from, Kay took a shot at it originally, and then I edited it. And we tried to divide it into sort of 5 main points, and they are listed here. And number 1, and I won't go into all of them individually, was just informational meetings and trainings that the board requested in one form or another through the various evaluations. And that's what's listed here. So we have sort of presented this to the administration and asked for future meetings, and it may be done in committee meetings or board members, just to educate us further on these topics. And I would like to ask too, because it came up just this last week and also it came up this morning, one of the things that in discussing with the provost was about metrics and what do we measure, how do we measure it, and the provost was telling me about the institutional research office, which I really didn't know that much about it, but I would almost like to add sort of in real time that I think, Dr. Oldham, we really need to learn more about that, because this office and group on campus, as I understand it, does evaluate all this data, provides these, I guess, the information, and there's probably other information that we could ask for through that office if necessary.
That's great. It's resource.
Yeah, and I would say they can certainly do special projects as well, but most of that gets posted online, and we can make those online resources available to the board, so you know where to look for data if you're interested.
Thank you. And I guess the other thing that came up this morning was just the foundation and how that may relate to the Board of Trustees. I think that would be useful information for the future. Some other comments were committees and meetings. Just a few very brief comments. Before we actually first met as a board, we did look at what committees should exist. At one point, it was even proposed that we have 4 different committees. But due to the size of the board, the fact that we only have 9 members, we settled on the 2 committees that we have. I don't think that there was, I guess, enough comment from the board evaluations to try to change that structure now. But I would say, you know, when we have, I guess, a new chair or the chair, you know, new chairs for the committees, it could always be looked at or reconsidered in the future. And I don't think that the structure that we have now should consider to be stagnant for all posterity. I mean, we can always reevaluate it. But I think for the time being in the current schedule that we're on, I see no need to change. So I think that'll stay. One comment, though, was the committee meetings. I mean, typically we have committee meetings on the day of our board meetings, and sometimes we have committee meetings off schedule. I do think it is the responsibility of the individual committee chairs to schedule those as needed. And as we have more informational type meetings that we've requested, those may be more effective coming through those committees. So I would just ask, I know Barbara's not here, but we will have another chair at some point for the academic and student affairs. But that should be the responsibility, I think, the committee chairs to determine how many are, if needed, the off-schedule meetings to have. And we will, as we demonstrated today, try to allow more time for those committee meetings. In fact, we did not have an executive committee meeting today because we didn't need it. We had it a couple of weeks ago, and I think that gave us a little bit more time to discuss further this morning, so I think that worked out well. Some comments on communications. I won't go through all of these, but I do think the administration has already taken some steps. Even today, there was a point, about having some of the presentations in the board materials sooner. And all I can say is we'll strive to do that, and ask that, I guess, Dr. Oldham, that your staff do that as well, just so we have a better look at it. Number 4, there was only one sub-bullet, but I think it's a really important point, and this is the process and benchmarks related to the evaluation of the president's performance. And we've talked about this. I know, Trudy, you talked about this with Dr. Oldham quite extensively, but I think the general idea is that in our next go-around, it's safe to say we would like a streamlined, smaller set of goals, but with measurable metrics that we can look at and compare to and see how they change. And that's what we hope to see the next time around. Finally, one of the questions in the board evaluations was that what are Tennessee Tech's major issues? And I've tried to list them here sort of in what we feel is sort of the order of importance. I think Tennessee Tech's fiscal health is number 1. We debated on, is that not the same as student enrollment? But it's really not. I mean, student enrollment is one factor, but fiscal health involves a whole lot more than that. Validity of programs, expenses, it's the whole package. And so I think we hope as a board that will be focused on more. Also, there's morale on campus, focus on students, state and national trends for job needs, and then the last one, building, strengthening relationships with different campus constituencies. All of these things we think are important. Now, as a board, the question was, do we take action on any of these? And the decision and recommendation from the executive committee was not really. I mean, the action is, and we're doing it now, is to make these suggestions and provide it to the administration, and it's your job to run with that as we see it. So that's where we are. So moving on, the next item on the agenda is the approval of alignment of term expirations for the student trustee, the committee chairs, and the chair. And the main point of this is that for one thing, I guess Melissa, the faculty representative, your term and the student representative's term didn't necessarily line up with the rest of our terms. And so what we would like to do is take an action of the board to align them all to be basically June 30th. And you should have, I think it's in the book. No? Does everyone? If we haven't provided it, we can provide. This is a list of all the current terms of all the board members and when they expire. But the idea is to make everything June the 30th so we're consistent throughout. So if I could entertain a motion to...
Mr. Chairman, upon the committee's recommendation, I move the executive committee's recommendation, I move the board to extend the expiration of the student trustees, committee chairs, and the chair's terms to June 30th, 2019, and for all future terms to commence on July 1st of the applicable year.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion made and we have a second. Any discussion, comments?
It's my motion, but I do have a question because that motion does not incorporate the faculty, and I think there was a reason for that. Isn't yours set a different way or something, Melissa? Or maybe Kay can remind us?
We didn't include it?
No, the faculty senate decides how the faculty trustee is selected. So it's my understanding that the faculty has realigned already the next. And so we had a gap.
I'm seeing Troy Smith's head going up and down, so I think that's positive. So thank you. I noted that we talked about the faculty, and I knew we intended the faculty, and I couldn't remember what the
Yeah, I said it by mistake, but it's correct. That's already taken care of.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you. That's good. That's
Anything
good.
else? Roll call vote, Kay?
Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Sigourney?
Aye.
Stites?
No.
Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
All right, you have 7 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, the next item, item number 6, Audit and Business Committee Report Recommendations. Teresa?
Okay. On the item number 1 for the Audit and Business Committee is the, to just a summary item that the Audit and Business Committee approved the audit plan for calendar year 2019, and it is included in your board book, and there's no additional action required.
Okay. So on the regular agenda, then we have the report to the General Assembly related to expenditures of tuition and mandatory fee revenues.
Yes. By February 1st of each year, the board's required to provide a report to the General Assembly with information regarding the expenditures of revenues derived from any tuition and fee increase from the previous full academic year. The report must include how revenues were used, the effect on student financial aid, and the effect on the average total cost of attendance per student. Upon the committee's recommendation, I move the board approve the Tuition Transparency Act report.
We have a motion made. We have a second made by Johnny. Any questions, comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Sigardi?
Aye.
Stites?
Aye.
Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you. Teresa, I think factors used in determining tuition and mandatory fees.
The board's required to develop a list of factors that it must consider when developing recommendations to increase tuition and mandatory fees. The factors must include, as at a minimum, the level of state support, total cost of attendance, and efforts to mitigate the financial effect on students. Upon the committee's recommendation, I move the board approve the tuition transparency factors the board will use in determining tuition and mandatory fee increases.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. A second by Radonna. Any questions, comments? I know we discussed it earlier this morning.
Yeah, maybe just to say that from the discussion this morning that just because these factors are listed, it doesn't mean that the board will discuss or consider other factors. And so just to, I guess, get that on kind of a bigger...
I agree. I mean, we said it this morning, but I think that's very important to consider. We're not limited to that.
Right.
But that's just the basic starting point. So.
That is the minimum, yes.
Yes, the minimum. Okay. Roll call vote. Okay.
Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Sigardi?
Aye.
Stites?
Aye.
Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. So, Teresa, we are ready for approval of the 2018-19 October revised budget and organizational chart.
Okay. The committee reviewed and recommends approval of Tennessee Tech's 2018-19 October revised budget and organizational chart. And upon the committee's recommendation, I move the board approve the recommended October revised budget and org chart.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Radonna. Any comments or discussion?
I'll just say, I think we all talked about this offline, but I thought Dr. Stinson's presentation this morning was really, really good on this, and we appreciate that.
It was really, I mean, I do appreciate that. It was much easier to follow, and it was organized well. Thank you. So. Roll call vote.
Geist?
Aye.
Harper?
Aye.
Rose?
Aye.
Sigardi?
Aye.
Stites? Van Hooser?
Aye.
Wilmore?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have disclosed capital projects, again from audit. Teresa.
Okay. Approval of amendment to the fiscal year 2018-19 disclosed capital projects to include a sprinkler system expansion in the Rhoden University Center. So upon the committee's recommendation, I move the board approve the amendment to fiscal year 2018-19 disclosed capital project to include the sprinkler system.
So we have a motion. We have a second by Johnny. Any comments? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Geist.
Aye.
Harper.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Sigardi.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Van Hooser.
Aye.
Wilmore.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you. Now we are ready for item number 7. This is Board Delegation of Authority to Academic and Student Affairs Committee. This is what we talked about at length this morning with whenever a new academic program is to be introduced, instead of the letter of notification coming or needing to be approved by the board, we are delegating that authority to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee. So I'd like to entertain a motion. Trudy?
Certainly. I move the board delegate authority to the Academic and Student Affairs Committee to support letters of notification to THEC regarding proposed programs as deemed appropriate by the committee.
Do we have a second? We have a second by Teresa. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Kay?
Geist.
Aye.
Harper.
Aye.
Rose.
Aye.
Sigardi.
Aye.
Stites.
Aye.
Van Hooser.
Aye.
Wilmore.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you. The only other item on the agenda is item number 8. This is December 19th and a revised date. The meeting will be December 3rd rather than on December the 5th. And is there any other business?
I just want to go back just for a second to the board's evaluation, because I don't want to leave thinking that the board is just ignoring some of these things. So when you say, you know, we looked at this, but there's not any action right now. But I do want the campus community to know that for you, and I believe that this is true for the board, the fact that you are recognizing the fiscal health, the student enrollment, the morale on campus, that what you're saying is we get it. We realize that these are issues that we are going to be aware of going forward. So I just didn't want to leave it as
yeah, I think it's a fair comment.
Yeah,
I mean,
And work on, not just be aware of.
Yeah, I just.
It's a good point.
Because
to me, the
through.
point is, in this board evaluation, we do the self-evaluation, and various suggestions came up from various board members.
Yeah.
And all of these individual suggestions may not warrant an actionable item by the board, but I think it's very important for the president and the administration to understand these are our concerns. Mm-hmm. And we would like to see going forward, you know, some improvements, some efforts put in these areas. Yeah. And we had that discussion. I had that discussion, you know, with the president, and we did in the executive committee, and now a third time. You know, we're saying again, these are things we feel are important. And I think, you know, coming up, even this morning in our committee meetings, talking about the foundation board, or just last week in learning more about the institutional research office. Those are things I think as a board we need to be educated on better. So I don't know how else to address it except, and I think that the president's been very responsive to saying, yes, we understand, and we'll try to work on those things.
Yeah, I just didn't want to leave that impression because it kind of went by.
No, it's not.
Almost as so. Thank you.
It's not like we're done.
Exactly. And
this is just what we want to see.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just add one. We're in total agreement on these issues, so there's no question about that. But just to reiterate, message has been received, absolutely, and we are on the same page.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. I think it was a good meeting.